Hi ladies, these are the pads that I wore this month for anyone who might be interested. I have these sorted by days. My period was shorter this time than I expected. It used to be 5 days before I switched to cloth. It used to be 5 days every time. And then when I switched to cloth, it was only 4 days, and it had done that a few times. And then this time, I was expecting 4 days. I was prepared for five, but instead I got really about 3 days and a half. But that last half day was hardly anything. So I'll just go through these in order. These are the first day. This is when my period started. It started in the morning. Usually the first day is just a light day anyway, but it did start in the morning. So this was the first pad that I put in, and it did take a stain. So I'll try to cover that up. But I worked on this a lot, trying to get the stain out. I spent quite a bit of time on it. I was concerned because this is such a delicate looking print. This is a Beatrix Potter print from Fig Leaves Pads. And because it's so light colored, I was concerned about it staining. But it cleaned up. It cleaned up quite well. Just one little spot down here just doesn't look quite right. But like I said, I did spend quite a bit of time cleaning it. This was a very comfortable pad. It's very thin and just really soft. It just moves around really well. It's so comfortable. It's easy to forget that it's even there. And then this one is Mama Cloth, and I was really concerned about this one staining as well because it's so light, but it cleaned up really well. It did take me a little while to get all the stains out, but it did clean up beautifully. And it's very thin and very comfortable also. The next one is iCarly. Now this one did take a stain also, and also I'll try to kind of cover that for you. I don't know what the difference is. I spent just as much time working on this one, trying to get the stain out, but it still doesn't look right up here. So I don't know what the difference is between these different, why some of them clean up nicely and some of them don't. It still looks all right. It just is a little discolored right there. This one is also very thin and light and very comfortable. And then for overnight, I was so excited to be able to use my Halloween pads this month. But disappointingly, really not much happened overnight the first night. Usually the first day is light anyway. And sometimes when I lie down at night, the flow just stops. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I do have quite heavy flow at night, but sometimes it just stops. So there was really nothing that happened that first night. Now the next day, this is the second day here. The second day was a heavy day. And so I wanted to try this one out only because I have another one. This is Mama Jewel's Gems, and I have another one that I picked out for my sister for a gift. And so I wanted to check it out and see how well it absorbs before I give the other one to my sister. And it did quite well, actually. And I was surprised. This one is just a little bit different. The fleece on the back feels a little bit different than most of the other pads. It is a fleece. It's just there's something, it's flatter or something. And I was concerned that it wouldn't really grip as well, and stay in place as well, but it did. And this was, like I said, a heavy day, but it cleaned up perfectly. There were no stains at all. Now this one I wanted to try. I was very eager to try it. It's hemp. It's a hemp fleece on top. The back is different. The back is PUL. Rather than the PUL being inside the pad, it's just the backing, which does make it just a little strange. I mean, it felt fine once it was snapped in place. It felt fine, and it didn't really move around. Didn't really move around like I thought it might. This little spot right there, that's just where I had it hanging. Hanging to dry. I don't put any of these in the dryer, I just hang them up. This one was great for heavy flow. It just soaked up everything. It was like a sponge. And it didn't come around on the edges very much, but the front of it was just soaked. And there were no leaks, nothing came through on the back. And like I said, this didn't really slide around much like I thought it would, because it's not flannel, it's PUL. But it did stay in place okay. The thing that was so strange about it, really, that is just different from the other pads, is when I washed it, when I soaked it in the bucket, it just kind of like inflates. And it looks really weird. The other pads, the other pads don't do that. The other pads don't really like swell up like this in the bucket. But this one just sort of did. It just looked like a big bubble. It was kind of weird. And the blood that was on here, when I soaked it, it just went, it just went everywhere. It's like I said, this was like a sponge. And so I got worried when I saw it soaking. It looked like it was just soaking everything. It looked like it was soaking up everything from the other pads too. And I saw it, and I saw it discolored, and I thought that I would never get it clean. But it did. It cleaned perfectly. I did have to work just a little bit. There were just a few spots that stained, and I had to work a little to get the stains out. But it's there's no sign now that it was ever as bad as it was. So so that was fine. Like I said, this just, I don't know why that just bothered me. It just looks funny. I wish somehow that it just sort of was stayed together, but it's fun. This one is the silver liner, and these pads have the absorbent layer that goes all the way to the edge of the wings. So these wings are thicker than the other pads, and I was not sure what to expect with that. Obviously, when I put it in place, I could feel it a little more. It's not to say that was uncomfortable at all, but I could just feel it. I could feel it there more because there's more material wrapped around. But it didn't really affect me, and I was able to move normally. It didn't really change how it felt. It stayed in place really well. Now, this was a heavy day, and so I really put this one to the test. This one, and because the absorbent layer goes all the way out to the edge of the wings, when I saw this, after it had been used, it was just covered. It was just it was all across the wings. It was everywhere. The fluid had just gone everywhere, all over the wings. And I thought surely that I would have some stains on my clothing. I was certain that I would. When I saw this, I just knew that it was on my jeans. And I looked, I checked, and it wasn't. It had not gotten on my clothing at all. Nothing had leaked through on the back. The back was still perfectly dry. And nothing where the wings were wrapped around, nothing had gotten on my clothing. So it was fine. Now, I thought that was possibly because of this absorbent core going out on the wings. But on the next pad that I wore, I found out that it was not the case, because this one did the same thing. Now this is Orgopads, and this is their discontinued round style. I bought this because it was on sale. Their discontinued style is quite a bit marked down, and so I ordered some of these. Now it has Zorb, and I was curious. It has Zorb for the core, but I don't know if you can see that it stops. The core stops at the wings. Now it also has an extra strip here that I was curious about. So it has one full length of Zorb, and then it has a rectangular strip right here in the middle, an extra layer of Zorb. So I was curious about that. So again, this was a heavy day, and when I saw it, it had done the same thing as the previous pad. There was just fluid everywhere. It was all the way. The wings were soaked, and I don't really know why that happened. I was pretty active that day, so that could have been part of it. But again, because the wings were just soaked, I was worried that it had gotten on my clothing, but it hadn't. There was not a single spot on my clothes. The wings had contained it all, even though there's no absorbency here. It's just the cotton on top and then the fleece on the back. But it, and even wrapped around the underwear, nothing had gotten on my clothing. It had just all stayed on the pad. And it cleaned up perfectly. I was really surprised because this background is white and it was such a heavy day. I was concerned about it coming clean, but it looks new. It was not that much work to clean it. The next one is Yurtcraft. And I did have to work a little extra on this one. I did get the stains out, but I had to scrub a little extra to get these stains out. But this one held up perfectly. I expected nothing less. It was very comfortable. No, this one didn't, and I don't know what the difference could be, but this did not nothing got on the wings at all. It just, all the flow just stayed in here. And I don't know if maybe that has something to do with this stitching, that might help direct the fluid to the center of the pad. But nothing got on the wings, and it cleaned up fine. I just had to work a little extra. Now for overnight on the heavy day, I tried this one. This is Popples, and it's really the only Popples pad that I have, but I was so comfortable in it that I actually am thinking about ordering some more. Maybe not right now, but in the future. The shape was really nice. I mean, it's so large. I would have been a little worried about wearing it during the day, but at night it was just perfect. It was so comfortable. I just felt completely covered. I just felt like there was no chance of a leak or anything. I just felt so comfortable in it, and it's really soft. It moves, it conforms really well, and just really thin and light. But it is, if I recall correctly, it is a heavy pad. So it has, I think she does hers by 3 layers, and I don't know what the layers are, but they're thin. They're very thin, and it held up perfectly for a heavy night. There were no leaks, and it cleaned up well. It did have a few spots on it, but I got them out. Now on, let's see, first day, second day, on the third day, these I had ordered. These are from Naturally Hip, both of these. And I had ordered these, and they hadn't arrived yet, but they came in the mailbox the afternoon of the second day. So I washed them that night. I always wash everything as soon as I get it. And that's really for allergy reasons, because some of these pads are made in homes that have pets, and I do have allergies to some animals, particularly cats. So every time I get some pads, I put them in the washer, and then I hang them up. There's the little circle. I don't know why both of the hemp pads kept this little indentation where it was hanging on the hook. But so I washed them both that night, and then they were dry the next morning, so I used them first thing. So this is the first one on the third day I started with. This is just a cotton top, and the back is flannel instead of fleece. And I don't remember what the absorbent core is. I just really liked the design is the reason that I got it. I wasn't really sure what to expect with the absorbency or movement. I thought since this is a flannel back, it might be a little different than the fleece, but it was fine. This day wasn't as heavy as the second day. So I started out with this one thinking that I might have another heavy day. I used to have two heavy days before I switched to cloth, but this day was not as heavy. So I used this. It was fine. There were no leaks or anything, and it cleaned up perfectly. It was easy to clean. This one is hemp, and so I wanted to try this the same as this other one here. I forgot to mention that this one here is Wild Rose cloth pads. And again, as I said, this one is naturally hip. So I wanted to try the hemp again. It was a little, it's 8 inches. It's backed with cotton, not fleece. So I was a little concerned, still thinking that I might have a heavy day. I was a little concerned about the length and the back not having the fleece. But it was fine. There were no leaks, and even though it was a little shorter than I felt comfortable with at the time, it was fine for what I needed. And just as with this other hemp pad, this was like a sponge. It just soaked up everything, and nothing got on the wings. It just all stayed right here in the middle, and it was really comfortable. I do recall this being just a tad bit warmer, if I recall correctly. It was pretty warm these past few days. Even though it's October already, it's still rather warm where I live. So I do recall these hemp pads both being just a little bit warmer with the warm weather, but it was fine. It was nothing too uncomfortable. Now the next one is another fig leaves pad, and I just love this one. It's 8.5 inches. These pads are just so flexible. I mean, they're just so soft. You just put them in, and you just forget that they're there. This one held up really well. My flow wasn't as heavy as it had been on the second day, but it was still, I would call this a moderate day, and I had this one in actually longer than I want to leave them in. I like to change often, even before it's actually necessary. I like to go ahead and change so it feels fresh and dry. I just once it starts getting wet, I just don't like to leave it in. But this one I was out and I was busy, and I had this one in for a long time and didn't have a chance to change, and it held up perfectly. And I was concerned about some of the stains, but it came completely clean. So I'm very happy with that one. And I also wanted to try, this is Party in My Pants, and I wanted to try this one. So I went ahead and used it. Really, all of these were chosen as an assortment of the different pads that I wanted to try if I hadn't already used them. This one was great. Now, it's a little narrower. This is their medium pad, and I chose this one because it was on sale. And it says that it's 2.5 inches when snapped, which is the same, like fig leaves are 2.5. This one was 2.5. Pretty much all of them are 2.5 when snapped, but this one just seems narrower. It just doesn't feel like 2.5 inches. So I actually just ordered a wing extender from them to see if that helps a little bit. But it was great for being so thin. It's just unbelievably thin. I mean, it just feels, you can tell that there's some absorbent layer in there, but I don't, it's almost feels like paper. Like it feels like it's too thin to actually do anything. But it did. It soaked up everything, and it just stayed. Of course, my flow was getting lighter at that time, but it just stayed right here in the middle. So aside from it being just a bit narrow for my preference, I was quite happy with this. Another thing I was concerned with the nylon backing. I didn't know how much it would move, but it really didn't. So for overnight, on the third night, I used another Halloween pad, and by this time, this was the third day, the end of the third day, and almost nothing was really happening anymore as far as the flow. But I did want to have a longer pad in for overnight just in case. And again, these are just so soft. I don't know what the secret is, but they're so soft. So it was really comfortable, but there was really not much flow. And then on the fourth day, my cycle had pretty much stopped. And well, not completely. I was still having. I would call it another light day, light to spotting. By the end of the day, it was nothing but spotting. So I had this one in for quite some time because there was not a lot of flow, but it did beautifully. And I didn't have any problem. This is another silver liner where the absorbent core goes all the way to the wings, to the edge of the wings. But I didn't have any problem this time with anything getting on the sides. And that might be because my flow had lightened up so much that it just stayed in the middle. Again, with these wings being thicker, because the absorbent layer is in the wing, I could feel it just a little more as I was wearing it. I just felt you can just feel more thickness right there. So you feel it a little bit more, but the pads are so soft that it's hardly a bother. And it cleaned up perfectly. And then I had this one. This is another, I think this one's 7.5 inches from Fig Leaves Pads. And there was not much going on with my flow at this point. So it was nice and comfortable. It just didn't really get tested too much. But it was very soft and comfortable. And then on the fourth night, I just used this one for an overnight pad. I had been prepared. I have some other overnight pads that are longer and heavier that I was prepared to use, but because my period had just about stopped, by the time I put this in, it appeared to have stopped. But I went ahead and put a pad in overnight anyway. I didn't want any surprises. But this is a Counting Cloth Creations, and I think this is just a 9-inch pad. And usually I would wear this during the day, but I just use this for overnight, and it was really comfortable. These are, as with the Fig Leaves pads, these are just so flexible and just so soft. You just forget that they're even there. So this was really comfortable to wear overnight, but it didn't have to do anything. My flow had just stopped by that point. And so that was it. 3.5 days. And to be honest, I was a little disappointed because I had some other pads that I really wanted to try that I thought I would be able to, but my period was shorter. So there you have it. Another great period. See you guys later. Bye.